I told my parents, oh, I'm going to Taiwan in a week. My parents were a little bit freaking out about this whole, like, what? I already bought my airplane ticket. I'm going.
Whoa.
I'm going to go see my boyfriend for 3 weeks and travel around Taiwan. So I was quite happy about myself. They were much less happy about it, a little bit scared. That time, you know, how people confuse Taiwan and Thailand.
Yeah.
Well, my dad was typically one of those persons too.
Still do too.
Yeah, still do people. And he had recently watched the movie Taken.
Taken.
Yeah,
okay.
So basically the daughter got kidnapped while she go to Thailand. So my dad was sure I would go be a sex slave or whatever when I moved to Taiwan. He was really scared about that. Well, I still went. Mm-hmm. I had an amazing time for the first time I came in Taiwan. So it was the first 3 weeks, and we actually drive all around Taiwan by scooter for 3 weeks. But so it's always a little bit like, as a mother, I want him to feel integrated in this country and not feel like an outsider. And I know at some point he will need to fight for himself and see what's his place and his identity. But I'm a little bit wondering, like, how can I help in between to stand up for him and that he doesn't feel like, okay, whatever, this country doesn't belong to me or I don't belong here, but then he might feel he doesn't belong anywhere. So I want to make sure he feels accepted.
Hi, I'm Sharon Landon and welcome to the Old Asian Lady Show. Today my guest is Marraige Mestdagh. She is originally from Belgium and now she's living in Taiwan. Thank you, Marraige, for coming to my show today.
Well, thank you for inviting me. That's very nice of you.
So how does a girl from Belgium end up here in Taiwan?
Well, do you want the short version or the long version?
Well, let me see. Your pleasure.
Well, let's go with the long version then, since we have a bit of time. So when I was finishing high school, I had to choose what kind of study I wanted to do, and I could not come up with anything. I was thinking either do acting, either do science, so quite opposite. So I decided to take a gap year to study languages. So I first went to the north part of my country for about 6 months in Antwerp to make my Dutch better. And then I went to Seattle in the USA to learn English, well, improve my English. And it was in US that I met, let's say, handsome Taiwanese boy that time. And that's what led me to Taiwan.
Ah, okay.
So love.
Sort of, yeah, it's kind of a roundabout way. We'll get to the story. So you said that you took a year out to learn language. Now in Belgium, they speak German, French, and Dutch.
Yes.
And so why did you have to take a time out to learn?
My mother tongue is French.
Okay.
And so I grew up only speaking French, and from elementary school we started having like 4 hours a week of Dutch classes. Then in first year of high school I can actually choose if I wanted to study English or Dutch, not both. So I first keep going with Dutch, and on my 3rd year of high school I started studying English. So I only started studying English when I was about 14 years old. 14. Before that, I never did any English classes.
Okay.
So yeah, that's a choice to make. Then I guess I had like intermediate level in Dutch, low intermediate after the high school. So I decided to improve because that time I was still thinking I would still stay in Belgium and work in Belgium. And to be able to have a better job in Belgium, it's better to be at least bilingual with Dutch and French. Mm-hmm. And if you can add English to the part, it's even better.
Okay, so German doesn't come into play with the
No, not really, because German is actually spoken in a small area of Belgium, which is near Germany. So yeah, most schools in Belgium would not even offer German classes.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so you mentioned that you met your handsome Taiwanese husband now.
Yeah, we're married.
Yeah, you're married.
Spoiler alert.
Yeah, we skipped really to the front there. So how did that work? Did you ever, in Belgium, are there a lot of Asians or Taiwanese living there?
Not really. I mean, no, that after I met my boyfriend that time, I noticed a little bit more that there are some Asian in Taiwan and there are some Taiwanese, but it's quite a minority. Asians, yeah, we have, I mean, compared to Taiwan, Belgium is quite a multicultural country. So we'll have a lot of people from Africa or Asia as well. Asia is more minority, but we are more minority as white people here in Taiwan as Asian would be. So, like, yeah, when I walk in the street here in Taiwan, Taipei less, but in other places, people will just stare at me and be like, oh, white Gaussian, a foreigner, for those who doesn't speak Chinese.
Still now, because I feel like there's so many more foreigners or foreign faces in Taiwan than
so
before.
That's why I say in Taipei usually is fine, but anytime you go outside of Taipei, usually kids will notice more than parents, because even though when I go Costco, every once in a while I will hear like a little kid like, oh, Mama, you're a white Gaussian. And I'm like, how do you know I'm a foreigner, you know? I'm like, so now my go-to answer is to tell them, oh, I'm not a foreigner, I'm an alien.
An alien, 外星人.
Just playing our word, it's a bit funny.
Oh, so you actually speak Chinese. They don't ever try to practice English on you because you're a foreigner or...
Oh, they do too, but when they speak to their parents and I overhear them, I usually don't pretend I didn't hear, I just go right to it. Or when I see them staring, I'm just like, hello. And so you have half of the kids who are really shy and they just run away and hide. The other half are really happy about it and say hello back. But so, yeah.
Yeah, kids are funny because today, too, coming down the elevator in my apartment, there's a little kid. And I look Asian. I mean, I look local. But he's just staring at me. And then I'm like, you know, waving. And it's right. Sometimes they're kind of shy because they're not necessarily used to people just... being friendly and, you know. Yeah, because I'm from Hawaii and it used to be the majority or the Caucasians were quite a majority over there. But in the past, how many years, and they actually as a whole, they still are a majority. But if you add all the different Asian groups that are there, Vietnamese, Korean, Chinese, Japanese, actually then the Caucasians are in a minority, but in general they
Yeah, so in Hawaii you can see like maybe 50% of Asian or something like that. That's what you would say.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah.
So you will not be stared at in Hawaii.
That's true. I do not have the experience of the white face being stared at. So I mean, is that taken a lot of time for you to get used to?
First time I came in Taiwan was in 2010. So just after I went to US, I went back to my country first. And 2 weeks and a half later, I told my parents, oh, I'm going to Taiwan in a week. My parents were a little bit freaking out about this whole, like, what? I already bought my airplane ticket. I'm going.
Whoa.
I'm going to go see my boyfriend for 3 weeks and travel around Taiwan. So I was quite happy about myself. They were much less happy about it, a little bit scared. That time, you know, how people confuse Taiwan and Thailand.
Yeah.
Well, my dad was typically one of those persons too.
Still do too.
Yeah, still do people. And he had recently watched the movie Taken.
Taken?
Yeah,
okay.
So basically the daughter got kidnapped while she go to Thailand. So my dad was sure I would go be a sex slave or whatever when I moved to Taiwan. He was really scared about that. Well, I still went. I had an amazing time for the first time I came in Taiwan. So it was the first 3 weeks and we actually drive all around Taiwan by scooter for 3 weeks.
Wow.
So it was really, really fun to do. And I was quite shocked by the fact that there was Chinese written everywhere. And it was like this huge mystery for me. Like, what the heck does that mean? It's everywhere. It means something and I have no clue what it is. For the first time, I felt like an analphabet.
You know, it's weird because now I can read Chinese or recognize Chinese, whereas before, when I was working, for example, in China or in Shanghai, I didn't I wasn't able to read too much. And so I find that when you're able to at least read the signs, you feel a little bit more grounded. And recently I went to Japan for a few days before I went back to the States. And it was all these Japanese words, and
And every once in a while you have one Chinese word popping up.
but it kind of just threw off my balance a little bit, not to be able to
understand your surrounding anymore. Yeah.
Okay, so you had a boyfriend already, and came to Taiwan for 3 weeks. But how did that start off? I mean, was it a really quick relationship, or had you ever dated Taiwanese or Asian before?
No, I never dated anybody actually before.
Oh, at that time. How old were you at the time when you went to study?
So when I went to US, we met and we first become very good friends. I felt like I found kind of my best friend, and then, well, slowly, not that slowly, but within a big month or so, we become like a couple. And we stayed together for about 4 months in US, something like that. He had to go back in Taiwan before me. I think he went back in Taiwan about a month before I left to US, left back to Belgium, I mean. So we were, that time it was Messenger, well, MSN, to be able to chat and talk and not sleep at night because of the time difference.
Right.
And stay up for until 2, 3 a.m. or either him, either me. So fortunately there is those technology, or I guess it would have been hard to just keep going with letters.
Yeah, who writes those nowadays? My hands get so tired when I try to. Oh, actually, you mean typing letters, not really actually.
Oh no,
writing.
I was meaning like actually writing letters. If we were like way back.
I know that seems so long ago because honestly, like I just said, if I even try to write anything now, my hand gets tired really fast.
Well, I remember when I was a kid in Belgium, and if I was in holiday, I would write a letter for my grandmother and my parents to say where I was. Yeah, I didn't have a cell phone before I was 16.
Yeah, well see, that doesn't always, work now, because now, I don't know about Europe, but if you're 16, if you're like 3 or 4, I see kids now in Taiwan or people with cell phones.
Doesn't own a cell phone, but every once in a while it's like, can I have 5 minutes watching picture on your phone? I'm like, okay. And I set a timer, and when it rings, it will give me back my phone and turn it off. So I succeed to teach him to not go too long on the phone because I don't want it. But he will ask almost every day to scroll through the pictures we took and things like that.
Okay, so at least you've got him under certain control about his...
I don't want... I mean, it would be so easy to just like, here's a cell phone, play with it for 2 hours, I can do my own stuff. But
and a lot of parents do that.
But I don't want this kind of parenting style, so I'm like, not in even the middle, but I give him like 5-10 minutes a day of screen time on the phone and 1 or 2 episodes on TV of something he likes, but that's about it. I don't want like too much.
So are you considered a strict parent or not really?
I'm more like gentle parenting style, so I will explain him everything beforehand. Like if we need to leave the park, I will warn him first, like, oh, we can play 10 more minutes. Then when we have 5 minutes, usually I'll be like, okay, let's put the timer. You can play 5 more minutes. So he will actually put the timer on my phone, and he knows when it rings, it's time to go. And I have also a kind of 5-second rule, but I did it like totally opposite from my parents did. Because my parents, when I was little, it's like, you have 3 more seconds, come here or you will be in trouble. It's 1, 2, 3. And it was very scary as a kid, and I really dislike it. So I make it really different when I'm like, hey buddy, we need to stop, and I already told you it was bad time, but what about it? I will give you 5 more seconds to play. So usually really excited about this those 5 seconds are usually like 20 seconds. So but I would be like, 1, wow, you make this little car go so fast. 2, you make it turn, no, awesome. 3, oh, that's so cool. 4, almost finished. And 5, let's go. And if he's like, oh, no, you still want to play, sometimes he will just get up and do whatever I ask. Sometimes he will just be struggling and be like, hey, buddy, we need to go. I know you have a hard time to do that, so let me help you. I will pick you up and we will go to the bathroom. So I stay like firm in the boundaries I want to give him, so that he knows when I say something, we do it. Because anytime I'm like a little bit tired and I like, oh, whatever, 5 more minutes, then I know the next time I give him a boundary, he will push on it harder again.
Yeah, exactly.
But so when I'm firm like this, sometimes he will whine a bit, but most of the time he will be fine after a minute or so, because it's just the way it is, but I bring it in a gentle way and in a way that he can understand. And if he starts to ask why, I will tell him why, not just because I say so. The number of times my parents told me like, because I say so, you need to obey me because I'm the parents. I've always tried to know the why and how and what's the reason. So I want him to know that there is a reason. And if it's dangerous, that's why, that's enough for me as an explanation, but there is still one.
Yeah, I think that's super important, being, doing what you say for kids, because like you said, they'll just push those buttons if they know they can get away with it. Well, did you, for your parenting style, did it come naturally to you, or did you, because you knew you didn't want to be like your parents, or did you kind of just read a lot of books about it? Or?
Well, I read some books. I also follow like some Instagram account about gentle parenting. I read, I'm also a scientist, since finally I chose environmental engineering as a major in university. So there is not a lot of studies about the brain development of a child and how the brain develops over time and what's totally normal behavior for kids at any age. And so those books help you to empathize, empathize with his own behavior when there is tantrum, and know that it's just big emotion and their brain cannot regulate them yet. So it's totally normal for them to have them. And so I just like kind of welcome the emotion, not especially the behavior, like, okay, I know you are mad, but I cannot let you hit me. So I hold the hand or whatever, so you cannot hit. And just welcome, okay, you can be mad, it's not a problem. You want to cry, you can cry, no problem. But so yeah, welcoming the emotion, but not a bad behavior going with it.
Right. Oh, interesting that you use science as part of understanding your parenting style.
And so like at some point kids will lie, but it's more like their imagination's going. So then, like before 6 years old, the boundaries between their own imagination and the reality are kind of blurred for themselves. So they don't really know always when they lie to you, are they really lying, or they are like imagining things? So like if a parent get triggered because the kid is like, oh, I didn't eat the chocolate cake, it's the dog did it while the face is all dark. It's kind of something. And there's also ways to ask questions to the kids in a way that they won't answer by lying. So instead of like being like, oh, did you eat the chocolate cake? Well, you totally know it. There's chocolate cake all the way. It's like, hey, buddy, I see you eat the chocolate cake. But it was not yet time for it. So next time we should not do that. And we cannot have more chocolate cake since you already get it. And I'm a little bit sad because that was actually my piece. Like talking and
right.
So that
reasoning with them. Actually.
Reasoning and telling them what's your own emotions so that they can know how to regulate their own and not be like taken into, hey, did you eat the chocolate cake? And the kids, no. I will be in trouble if I say yes. So
I know.
So like, in a way that.
Yeah. I'm just like thinking back to when I lied as a kid and why I lied. I can't think that far back. But yeah, it's an interesting way of handling kids. I mean, I don't have a child myself, so it's always seeing friends and how they deal with their kids. But now that we're on the subject of kids, do you find that the style that you've chosen, which is the gentle parenting style, is it different than what, for example, your husband's thinks, or maybe his parents being Taiwanese, or think about bringing kids up?
Yeah, actually, my husband is more like really open on what I think, and somehow he doesn't do much research himself. So he's like, okay, you want a gentle parenting style? Fine. And so I kind of need to find all the information, and they'll teaching my husband how to teach. And so he has a harder time for it because he's get too gentle in a way that he has hard time to set the boundaries. Who is well, he doesn't get angry easily. He's not a person who get angry easily. Or no, he does get angry, but if he get angry, he just shut up. And he just go in his office, go there, and not talk for 30 minutes or an hour or whatever, and then it will be fine and come back. But so he would not yell at our kid or whatever. It's just like, okay, you deal with it. And I'm like,
oh, that sounds like a typical guy. I don't know.
It's like, hey, I cannot handle it. And sometimes I find it a little bit unfair because I'm like, you need to know, but indeed,
equal partnership, equal parenting, Western style.
Indeed, my son listened much better to me than he would to my husband. He listened too, but since my husband have a hard time to go through with the boundary because he get a little bit triggered if my son start to tantrum or cry or whatever. And so he has a feeling that when he asks my son to do something, well, our son, then he wished that our son would just obey and do it. Well, he's 2.5 years old. So let's say 10% of the time, if you tell him, hey, let's go to bath, he will run to the bathroom. But 90 other percent, you kind of need to push him a little bit further, either really caring, that's kind of almost the worst case and happen like, let's say 20% of the time. But another is really like, hey, make a game, like be a little bit more energized herself. It's very tiring sometimes because you feel like you have zero energy and you need to show like you are so pop up and so happy about going to take a bath, for example, for this example. And well, my husband, if my son is like, nah, he will just be like, okay, whatever. So my son totally, or he knows, Edwin, that's the name of our son, knows, oh, okay, with that, if he doesn't move from the sofa, I don't need to move either. So there will be like not much happening sometimes.
Right. So, he knows how to deal with you, and he knows how to deal with his dad. Which is, interesting because Taiwan style, I feel like, or Asian or Chinese style of bringing up kids is quite different in a lot of ways than Western style. And especially too, if it's a son. I feel like, or I found in my time living in China as well as here in Taiwan, that a lot of times, especially if you're a son, you get away with a lot of stuff and the mom does everything for you, and you just basically get spoiled rotten in terms of that. But I don't know if your husband ever had went through that when he was growing up, and maybe his behaviors
are. He's the fourth in his family, so he has 2 big brothers and 1 big sister.
Okay, so
he probably get away with a lot of things because he was the last one. I mean, my younger brother got away with so many things, which made me mad as a growing up. I'm the oldest and I have 3 little brothers. And when I was a kid, sometimes I got so mad that like, hey, when I was little, if I did that, there's no way it goes, while my brother is like, oh, whatever. Or my mom would be like, oh, if you don't put the table correctly, you have no dessert. He doesn't do it. Then we are doing it, then he will come and put like 1 knife there. I did it. Okay, and we're like, really? And then my mom still give him dessert. And I was like, put 1 knife there doesn't mean anything. Like, if you are not going through with your threat, then they are meaningless. So that's also something I tell to my husband and to myself. It's like, if we tell something to our son, we need to go through with it.
Yes.
Either in a positive way or a negative way. And so we should never give promises to anyone that we don't actually want to go through with it. So if we are like, oh, if you keep behaving this way, we leave the park, then we should be ready to truly leave the park and not just pretend that way. And if we promise, oh, later, let's go have an ice cream, well, we should try our best to really do it and not just be like, oh, we promise you an ice cream in an hour and now we are not giving it to you. That's not fair. So that he knows all words mean something. And now that he can talk, I also tried the most to make his word also mean something. So if we are asking a question to him, and if he say no to us, well, we need to respect his no, so he know that his no means something. So that if we want to say like, hey, what about we have the bath in 5 minutes? And he say no, then I would be like, okay, then we will do it in 10. You know, whatever way that, or I should say, oh, we get the bath in 5 minutes, then it's not a question. And then, but if I ask him a question and he just tell me no, but yeah, somehow I ask him his opinion. I cannot just be like, oh, I don't care about your opinion since I asked for it.
Right.
So it's all a little bit mind thinking a lot, which now I get used to it. But at the beginning, it was a little bit hard.
Yeah. I said we'll have to have a parenting session next time.
I think what helps about the parenting is we adopted a dog first. When I moved in Taiwan 6 years ago, 3 months after we moved in Taiwan, we adopted a dog together from a shelter. She was 3 months old. And I also wanted more like positive training with her. So we were already...
So you had practice before you had your son.
We had practice before having a kid. And it's quite similar somehow, raising a dog. But raising a dog is actually faster and easier because as soon as they reach like 1.5 years old, the dog, what you teach them, they kind of know it. And if you keep with it, it's no problem. Yeah, my son still hits people sometimes in the playground or something like that. It's been a while that I'm telling him it's not okay to do so.
Right. So, before you guys had kids, and when did you end up within your relationship decide to actually move to Taiwan and live here?
So we first, we met in 2010, and then we had 6 years long distance relationship. That was not easy. I don't recommend.
Distance. Sometimes people really like those long distance relationships.
Yeah, and then it breaks when people get together. Well, it didn't in this case, but long distance relationship for me is something, it can work, I'm the proof of it, but it's hard. It's a lot of work and I don't recommend it if you're not already kind of forced into it.
Right.
Yeah, and so we had those 6 years long distance relationship. Then
6 months.
6 years.
6 years.
Oh, 6 years.
Oh,
and during those 6 years, I would come every summer in Taiwan, and my now husband will come almost every. Just the first year, we really had 1 year without meeting each other, and then my husband would come around Chinese New Year for about 2 weeks each time in Belgium. So he would come in winter in Belgium, so when it's cold and not nice, and I would come when it's super hot in Taiwan. That for 6 years. Then my husband did a second master degree in Belgium.
Oh.
Because he didn't propose yet. Yeah, not yet totally, but we were already talking. So we know it was coming. And because my husband studied law in Taiwan, it means there is almost no way that he can get a job in another country than Taiwan because of his job and major. While since I studied environmental engineering, environment is more broad, so I have more chance to find a job in Taiwan. So basically that's this, just thinking this way that make me move in Taiwan and not the other way around. Also Belgium, well, to have a job there, just English doesn't cut it. You need French or Dutch for sure, but both is better, plus English. It's quite hard to just, with English, to be able to do it. So my husband actually tried a couple of times to have the TOEFL test, because to get into a university in Belgium for a master's degree, he needed to have a high level. So it took him 2.5 years to finally succeed to get a high enough level in English to be able to come. And then he moved and stayed in Belgium for 1.5 years. So we lived together during that time.
Okay.
And then after we moved in Taiwan. So that was 6 years ago.
Okay, so did he chose to study in Belgium because of you? I mean, that wasn't on his original plan.
No, not at all. It was basically like, oh, you want me to expatriate in Taiwan? I'm okay with that. I like Taiwan and so on, but I want you to know a bit more about my family and my culture. So it was kind of a give to give, like you come in Belgium a bit, so you are more immersed with the culture. You finally be able to know a bit more my family, because each time coming 2 weeks in Belgium was not really cutting it, and we would travel when he was here. So he would see like my family 2 evenings during that time or whatever.
Right.
So yeah, so I wanted to be able for him to get closer and before actually moving, and also kind of try and run, does it work to live together before I really move my whole life in Taiwan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So how did your parents think about your relationship? I mean, was it totally accepting from the beginning, or?
No, the beginning they were like, okay, this guy is stealing our daughter away. Well, at first time is when I went to Taiwan the very first time, they were more like scared about it. Like, I go in Taiwan, what's going on? Then I came back and everything was fine, so they were a little bit less scared about it. And then finally, 1.5 years after me and my boyfriend were in a relationship, he came in Belgium, so they finally got to meet the guy, because before that, never did. And they did feel that it didn't seem like a bad guy.
Oh, that's a positive way of thinking it.
Yeah.
He didn't seem like a bad guy.
Yeah,
Okay.
it was not like, because there were such a huge language barrier.
Yeah.
I mean, my now husband, that time English was not awesome, it was like intermediate. My dad can speak a little bit of English, but not much. My mom have zero English, or they are divorced, my parents. So it was like one evening my mom, one evening my dad, so that they could see him. And so I had to translate the whole way, so it was like a 3-week relationship, like a discussion where I would translate from English to French to, and again and again and again. And sometimes we were just stuck in not really knowing how to say one thing in one of the language. So that was a little bit complicated about it. It still is anytime he come. I mean, my husband is starting to understand more and more French and speak some of it too, because when he did his master, well, after we met, he did some evening class, French class in Taiwan, but he could not really keep going with the class because, not enough Taiwanese want to study French, so the class didn't open all the time. And when he came for doing his master degree in Belgium, he also had French class. And now that we have our son, I only speak French to him all the time, to my son. Well, our son. So he's always listening French at home, and when you speak to a baby, you repeat again and again and again exactly the same thing. So it's helping listening, it's kind of thinking as well for my husband, not only our son.
Right. Oh, that's interesting. I took French as my second language in high school in the States. And actually, I extended it into the university. So totally, I took 5 years of French. And right now, I can understand quite a lot, but speaking it, it is kind of a scary thing.
Yeah, right now, I mean, I took a lot of Dutch class. If you take high school, it's 6 years, elementary school is 6 years, but elementary school, we basically did songs. So I don't know if it's count. And then I did 6 months intensive, but then I studied English after, and I never used Dutch since. So it's been like 13 years, I almost never had to use Dutch. The only time I had is when I go back in Belgium and go in holiday to the sea and go north part of my country, and then I'm like, okay, but it's just like in the back of my brain, there is Spanish who went on top, and Chinese on top, and English. So yeah, it's just so hard. I still understand a lot, but just speaking has my brain so much effort.
I know what you mean. It's like, well, I'm not totally fluent in Mandarin, so I'm still studying that. And actually, I would like to pick up French again, but I think we'll do that later after I'm able to speak Chinese completely, because sometimes I find that when I'm trying to think in a certain language, I end up mixing the languages. Do you ever do that?
Sometimes. And like, I know my brain is lazy sometimes, so I just pick up like the fastest way. So sometimes I have a conversation in the car with my husband, and then it's like, it's so cute. You just put one Chinese word there in the middle of your whole English sentence. I'm like, really? And then like Tujan, blah, 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 I came in English, Tujan, and then I'm like, oh wow, suddenly it's much longer to say. So I guess I just choose the
Yeah, it just
with-
pops up in the
yeah.
conversation. So you said that you talk to your son always in French.
Yes.
So how does he get English influence, or does he Chinese? Does he learn Chinese?
Well, yeah. So at home, I still communicate almost only in English with my husband. We met in US. We got used to it.
Right.
Anytime I start a conversation in Chinese with my husband, within 2 minutes, he will switch to English. I'm like, there's no way I can practice Chinese with him. Right now, my Chinese level is like intermediate level, so I can go around with daily life, talking to neighbors, things like that. But it's not yet advanced. I want at some point to get back to Chinese class so that I can improve my level to get out of this intermediate level and finally get to an advanced level. But yeah, I don't know.
It's hard unless you're using it every day.
Yeah, it's hard. I need to find a place, and there is a little boy to raise too. So
Yeah, exactly.
So, and my husband, even though I told him from the beginning, hey, it would be nice if you speak Taiwanese only with our son, because he only speaks Taiwanese with his parents.
Okay, so Taiwanese, not Mandarin.
Yeah. I wanted that because I was like, oh, the community language is Mandarin anyway, so he will learn Mandarin when he go at school or whatever. But my husband never started speaking Taiwanese to him. I guess my husband brain just think, oh, this baby come from my wife belly. I speak English to my wife. So he speak only English to our son, which maybe is not a bad thing. So now usually at home, Edwin will speak French to me. If I ask him to say, hey, ask to your dad about it, I say that in French.
Yes.
Then he will just go ask in English to my husband or whatever. And when he was 18 months, he started going part-time to a nanny who just live across the building of us, so very easy. And she speaks Chinese and, well, Mandarin and some Taiwanese to him. So now he just speaks fluently in French, well, as fluent as a 2.5 years old can speak, of course, but French, English, and Mandarin. And he knows some Taiwanese. I think he understands more than he's speaking. But that's also because when my husband will actually use some Taiwanese, it will more be like word basis, like vocabulary, and not especially like full sentence. So he know like couple of full sentence in Taiwanese, but not that much. And anytime we go see his grandparents, which would be like a little bit less than once a month, because my husband's family live in Ilan, so we don't go there that often. And I actually have to insist to them to speak Taiwanese with him. I don't know why, like, it's probably the same issue because they all speak Taiwanese together. They only use Chinese if they want to speak to me because I don't understand. Well, I start to understand a bit of Taiwanese, but I cannot speak it.
Yeah,
so they just speak Chinese to our son. And I'm like, come on, just speak Taiwanese to him. I don't want him to grow up and when he's older, it's just like, oh, what are my grandparents? Anytime I go see grandparents, I have no idea what's going on at home and what my dad is. Well, his dad is speaking with their parents and grandparents. So I usually just say in Taiwanese, gong tai, which means speak in Taiwanese, to them. Because anytime I try to say that in Chinese, it didn't work very well. But it looked like if I already like give them Taiwanese, their brain switch a little bit into Taiwanese too. And then they will more easily. But I usually remind them like 10 times a day.
Okay, so he's 4 now or 3? 3.
He's 2, 2.5.
2.5. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
So he speaks
3 in July.
In July. So he speaks Mandarin. He speaks Taiwanese, French, and English.
Yeah, Taiwanese is the least good language for him, but French, Mandarin, and English are on par, I would say.
Oh, kids are so amazing.
Yeah, it's great what he can absorb.
But you know, I kind of always thought that for me, when I was living in the States, if I would have wanted to learn Chinese and stuck with it, then I would be much more fluent than I am now. But I didn't have that environment, so it was always just an English environment.
It's demanding from the parents to try to raise a multilingual kids, because at the beginning, I've been living in Taiwan for 3.5 years before I got pregnant. And so my daily environment is all English and Mandarin. It's not French. I only speak French when I call back home, and I don't call back home daily. There's a 6 or 7 hours time difference, depending if it's summer or winter. And so I would call my family maybe once a week. And so anytime I actually met that I'm a French speaker in Belgium, it was so hard for me to not speak in English to them. I'm like, oh, there's another foreigner. Foreigner equals speak English. Doesn't equal. And for me, like, I see an Asian face, it's equal speak Mandarin.
Yeah.
And so I have a hard time when Taiwanese speak in English to me, moreover when it's a very broken English, I would just answer all the time in Mandarin if I can.
Right.
And they will keep going with some bad English, and I will keep going with some Mandarin. So it's getting a bit like awkward, weird type of conversation, but anyway.
I don't know.
If I see another foreigner, I would have so hard time to speak in French. And so when I decide I need to speak French to my baby, at the beginning it was such a huge effort to actually speak French to him and stick with it and not go to English. And moreover, when it was in front of my husband, no, I'm totally used to it. There is absolutely no problem with it. But at the beginning, it was a very, very strong effort to give to be able to do that.
Wow. So your son actually, if he communicates with your parents, then he speaks French.
Yeah, and it's totally knowing that with whom you need to speak what. So when he's at the playground and he would see another adult or other kids, he actually starts speaking in Taiwanese, in Chinese with them. With me, my parents' family, he switched directly to French. My husband is in English, and he doesn't really try much to go away from those languages. He knows, of course, that I can speak Chinese. He knows I speak English as well, but he stick to French. And anytime sometimes he try, he give me a book and say in English, and I'm like, oh, Mama is speaking French with you. So I will just, even if the book is fully written in English, I usually will just translate it in French to tell him the book.
Oh, interesting. Even if he comes up to you and says English to you.
Usually I will just keep with French because I know French is really the minority language. And now that he spent a little bit more time with his nanny, he would sometimes, when I see him play at home, he would just play in Chinese. He's talking to himself and it's in Chinese. And I'm like, okay, I need to push French harder because I know at some age, kids, usually multilingual kids, get a little bit lazy and they will just more speak the community language. So I'm trying to also find some friends that could be speaking French so that I'm not the only French-speaking person to him. And when he watch TV, the shows he watch is either we put it in French from Netflix, either if there is no French, it would be English. But I don't let him watch anything in Mandarin at home because I know if we give him too much Mandarin, then Mandarin will just take over the two other languages, and at some point it will stop. And also when he gets to school, he will still have English class. So English is still easy to get by, but French in Taiwan is just a hard thing to do.
Wow.
Yeah, so there's a whole plan. I'm already thinking, okay, when he gets older, how do I teach him how to read and write in French?
Okay, so your husband is totally good with whatever you do, right? In terms of language.
Something like that, yeah.
So when you moved to Taiwan, though, and made the decision, actually, obviously, to move back, were there things that you had really hard time adjusting to, or anything that you really loved about being in Taiwan?
Well, one thing that's hard being in Taiwan, but I think it's any expat in any country, is kind of missing all your marks. I mean, I don't have all my friends that I have in Belgium, my whole family. Also, the time difference make it hard because sometimes I'm like, oh, there's something hard happening to me and I would like to talk to my friends or so, but we're like, okay, when are you available? Next time in 2 weeks, okay? So you don't have this spontaneity that you can just make a phone call anytime in your way, because with Belgium timing is usually, well, when they would be free, that's evening for them, but that's the middle of the night for me, so I cannot really call. And usually when it's weekend and they might have more free time, well, I'm more trying to do something with my family, so I don't really want to spend an hour or two talking to my friend. So it's always a little bit of struggle to find the right moment to. My mom no usually call us during a break time, which is 1 p.m. in Belgium, and it's all 8 p.m. here, or 8:30, which is sometimes almost time to make our son go to sleep if he's sleepy early because he skip his nap. So yeah, it's a little bit a struggle about that time difference. That's not really a struggle, but the first time I came in Taiwan, one of the things which kind of impressed me and kind of like eye-opening about different culture was to actually see temples and see sometimes my husband praying in those temples and Taiwanese praying in temples. Because in high school, I studied Latin for 6 years as well, and we learned about Greek and Roman mythology and Zeus and all those different gods. And even though I knew somehow about like Buddhism and things like that, I kind of knew in the back of my brain it exists. We never studied that in any of the Belgian courses. And actually finding out that nowadays there are still people who believe and pray in multiple gods and not just a Christian god or Muslim god or whatever. It was like, okay, that's such a huge cultural difference to have this kind of belief. And that somehow that time feel a little bit like, oh, isn't it like old style to feel like, because I learned Greek mythology. So it was like, oh, 2000 years ago, people believed that Zeus would strike them with the lightning if they were not good. But nowadays, still believing in a lot of gods. So it's kind of also opened my eye like, okay, so that's fine too, to have everybody have their belief as soon as they will not be bad to other people and try to make other people believe, which is one of the things I dislike a bit about Christian religion, which is to try to, evangelize other people.
Everybody,
in sometimes bad way. I have very good Christian friends. I was raised as a Catholic. No, I have no clue what I believe. I believe there's maybe something else. But that's about
we'll have to have a conversation about this later. But you know a statistic here about Taiwan and temples. I understand that in Taiwan, per capita, there are more temples here than any other Asian.
I mean, there's more. There's a lot of church in Belgium already because while Belgium is a very old country, it's middle age level. So every center of any little village had a church or anything. But Taiwan temples is another level.
I know they're like all, and plus it's
everywhere.
Buddhism and Taoism also.
People it's kind of big.
Okay, so what other things did you notice or that was really quite different about Taiwan?
The food is not the same, of course. People usually say like Taiwanese food is so awesome. There's really good food and very weird food. Like I tried chou tofu, like stinky tofu, a couple of times. But I only try if my husband tried first and he think like, oh, this one is particularly good. So I would try a little bit. Some were actually okay. But I cannot bear the smell. I'm like, I need to go away. Like, why is it a lot in the street? Like,
it's really weird because sometimes I feel like it kind of smells good, but I don't really like stinky tofu myself. And I can sometimes eat the ones that are not super stinky, but there's other ones that are even more fermented that, oh my gosh, no, I cannot deal with that. It kind of reminds me of blue cheese in a way. I mean, do you like blue cheese? Because I cannot stand blue cheese.
I really like cheese in general, but somehow blue cheese I don't really like. But we have very, very stinky cheese in Belgium too, and which actually like they do stink, and I do think they stink, but they taste good. So
it's just weird, isn't it? If you like stinky things and stinky tofu.
Well, I guess it's also an acquired taste. I mean, one thing that was harder for me, like the first few years I came in holiday in Taiwan, is that Taiwan, the way the meal are made is you usually have a lot of dishes and a lot of different style of protein coming. So you will have shrimp, pork, beef, all at the same time. And in Belgium, the meals are usually you have one style of protein, then one carbs and one vegetable. And that's about it. And so it was a little bit overwhelming to me to be eating steaks and shrimp at the same time. I'm totally used to it now, like whatever. But the first few years, I was like, it almost like upset my belly. Like, how do you eat fish and meat at the same time? Like, it's a bit weird because it's not something we do.
Yeah, but it's like surf and turf in the States. You eat steak and seafood or something like that.
Yeah, but it's not really a thing in Belgium.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So yeah, that was, in terms of food, like something I had to get used to it. Also, we almost never eat tofu. And rice is maybe something we will eat once a week or less. So having rice at every meal, breakfast was like a no for me. Like having those rice soup in breakfast in the hotel was like, do they have toast somewhere? Like,
Yeah, so I can't eat the dough or the rice either.
Yeah, like no, if there's really no other choice. Like breakfast in Belgium, in my family, always have been sweet. So it's usually like a piece of bread, not
Danish
really toast, but better bread, I would say, and some yam or chocolate or any paste that you put on it. Some other family who might be eat cheese or ham on the bread, but my family was like just sweet stuff. So breaking that habit to have like a burger for breakfast, if it was not rice soup, was like a little bit hard. Now I can eat other stuff, but I still have a preference for sweet-ish things. Also, the bread is so different. I guess I get slowly Taiwanized because now I don't think bread tastes that bad in Taiwan. But at the beginning, I was just like, what is this?
Yeah, it's always kind of, it has a sweeter tendency. You should like that if you like sweets.
But at the same time, like, it's moreover, if it's a bread was supposed to be with something salty, and then the bread is sweet, like garlic bread is something I cannot do in Taiwan.
Garlic bread. It should not be French garlic bread, or it should be on a baguette. It shouldn't be sweet garlic. You're right.
And that is something like, I'm always like, I like garlic bread, I mean, the good one, but I'm always so disappointed, and I'm like, oh, some garlic bread. Or I got a couple of times tricked. No, I can read, but before I could read, like something, I'm like, oh, a chocolate bread. And of course, Hongdo, red bean is in that. And I'm just like, oh, no. So that's something, like, we don't eat a lot of red bean in Belgium, but when we eat it, it's mostly chili con carne, so it's more like Mexican food. So it's
that's like
salty
beans or something.
Yeah, a little bit salty, spicy, but not sweet. So
sweet
eating, sweet red bean, I know it's like the usual, like beans are in every dessert in Taiwan, and I'm just like, yeah, no. Dessert's supposed to be something nice that you enjoy. So for me, if the dessert is not something I really enjoy, I just skip dessert altogether.
Yeah, it's the one big thing I always can't get used to is the cheesecake, because I really like the thick, heavier style New York cheesecake. But in Taiwan, they have like this light, fluffy, moussey type of cheesecake. Oh, I don't like that. But you know, so at the end of the day, are you used to the food now? Do you like it? Because one of the things that I really enjoyed moving to China or Taiwan here, because I worked in China for quite a few years, is I like the fact that you can have so many dishes to try. You know, little of this and little of that.
I like it too. And also it's helped, like anytime we have that size, so a big family gathering with a lot of, I'm sure I will have something I like. So if they want, like, I still have a hard time to eat very spicy food. A little bit's okay, but too spicy because, well, we don't eat spicy food in my family at all. So I never grew up, like, the most spicy was pepper. But pepper, so I can eat peppery things because my taste bud got used to growing up with a bit of pepper. But I really like just spicy bell pepper.
It's a different spice
here.
Yeah.
Those I have a hard time for, but if they have that, it's fine. I will always find something I like on the table. And I'm not too picky with food, so I'm totally up to trying new things, even though I know, like, normally I don't really like it. Like, I never eat a lot of seashells in my country, so I never really like it much, or octopus or those kind of things, because I find them a little bit chewy and it's not something I enjoy. So anytime it's on the table and my husband is like, oh, this one is good, I would try a piece or two, and slowly there are some food that I didn't like before that no, it's not that I would order it for myself, but I can totally eat them and not be annoyed by having this kind of food.
Annoyed by eating.
And there are food that I really enjoy in Taiwan too.
Right.
And the fruits in Taiwan are really awesome.
Amazing. Yeah. They've got so many different ways of farming it, and how did I don't know. However they do the agriculture thing like that, but
when it's mango season, I would just tons of them.
And there's so many different types of mango. It's just amazing. Yeah. So what else? Did you have like any type of cultural shock aside from the food type of things when you first moved here, or?
Not really. It's just like, sometimes the loneliness of being an expatriate. And being a foreigner in Taiwan, which Taiwan being a mostly a monocultural country, it's make you quite noticeable. And I know that even if my Chinese would be as perfect as any Taiwanese, and even if I would know Taiwanese as good as any, I will still be the foreigner there. Anytime people see my face, okay, you are the foreigner. And that's something that's annoyed me a bit for my son, actually. Because, he's mixed and he looked a little bit more foreigner than Asian. But, that's what Taiwanese say, because when we are in Belgium, people think he look more Asian.
Right?
So I guess people more see the difference.
Yeah,
but so anytime he's playing around and so on, now it's helping that he starts speaking Chinese to other people, but before, and even now, it's like, the foreigner kid. And I'm like, he's Taiwanese, you guys. And sometimes the kid insists, or even the adults, like, no, he's foreigner. And I'm like, one time I talked directly to the kids, actually in Taiwanese, I can say a couple of sentences, and I asked them, like, can you speak Taiwanese? And the kids were just watching their dad, like, because I speak Taiwanese to them with that, and the dad translate to them in Chinese. She just asked if you can speak Taiwanese. And I got a little bit mean, that was not so nice, but anyway, so I just told them, like, if you cannot speak Taiwanese, maybe my son is more Taiwanese than you are, because he knows it. So
these are Chinese kids talking to him, not like other foreign kids.
It's Taiwanese kids, not Chinese kids, but Taiwanese kids, whoever usually would say that my son is a foreigner. Why is a Taiwanese like them? So I'm a little bit worried in the future that he will grow up in his own country feeling too much like an outsider. That's just one of my fear. And I don't know, so I get a little bit, how to say that? On edge anytime I hear other people say he's a foreigner, while he's not. I am, and it's annoying me already that people always mention, you are a foreigner. I'm like, really? How do you know?
I find that, he's probably going to go through it sometime or another, because these identity issues of how people see you, how you see yourself, and how it's just. For me, anyway, it's challenging in a lot of different ways. If I'm in the States, because my face is Asian, they don't necessarily think that I'm totally American, maybe, but maybe in the parts like Hawaii or in other parts where there's a lot of Asians. But I remember when I was working in China. And then on the other side, you're Chinese, but then you're a foreigner, so you're really not either one. So depending on where I'm at or what I'm doing, I can have different attitudes, and so it really kind of makes you question what your own identity is. So in terms of your son, I would say it's good to defend, I guess, if you want to say that he's not a foreign child, that he's actually a local child. But really, I had to come to terms with the fact that I'm not this or that. I am both.
100%
and
both.
so
Actually,
exactly.
Like less when people say, I'm 50% that and 50% that, and I'm like, well, no, actually you're 100% both. But anyway.
No, that's actually how I started thinking of myself as that. So anyway, it's interesting though, because when kids say that to him, are you taking it as in they're laughing at him or looking down at him, or why do you get so
I don't
offended?
know. They don't especially look down, but they will try like to speak English to him, even though they don't know any English or very little or whatever. Parents will also be like, "Oh, say hello," and I'm like, "You speak Chinese, you know?" But they will keep being like, "Oh, say hello," and I'm like, "Okay, whatever." But so it's always a little bit like, as a mother, I want him to feel integrated in this country and not feel like an outsider. And I know at some point he will need to fight for himself and see what's his place and his identity. But I'm a little bit wondering, like, how can I help in between to stand up for him and that he doesn't feel like, okay, whatever, this country doesn't belong to me or I don't belong here. But then he might feel he doesn't belong anywhere. So I want to make sure he feels accepted. And so, yeah, that's a little bit like the trigger, like how...
Yeah.
I don't know, like, if he was alone with my husband, it would be as much like you are a foreigner as... because obviously I don't look Taiwanese, so maybe if it's not with me, it's less a case, but I have no way to really know since I'm not there to witness it.
Does your husband do the Taiwan, or what I noticed as Taiwanese thing, because usually on Sundays when I'm out and about, I see that the husband or the father is taking the child out, the daughter or son out every Sunday because that's his day off and he gives the mom a break to do stuff. Is that what you guys do?
I wish. No, usually we'll just like go out all together and not just I do a thing and it's out and about. But if I have acting things, gigs or so, then either my son will stay a little bit longer at the nanny or my husband will take care of our son. So yeah, that's depend a bit about it.
Right. Okay, so aside from being a mom, you also are an actress.
Yes.
And how do you feel the Taiwan environment is for your career or?
Well, actually, I did a lot of theater class when I was in Belgium as a teenager. And then when I was in university, I took some acting class in the evening as well. So even though I major in science, I still keep touch with the acting world. And when I moved in Taiwan, I had a scholarship to study Chinese for 6 months. And I studied Chinese for 1.5 years. And during that time, at some point, I saw some ads on Facebook about acting. Well, the first one I ever saw, I applied for it and I got a job. So very lucky somehow, because I know it's not how it works, but that time the pay was good and it was like more of a acting than a lot of commercial I did. Because that commercial was about for cancer research. So I was supposed to be a baker who come to cheer up kids who have cancer to be there. So it was a little bit more like interacting with this kid who was like maybe 8 years old to make him feel good as well, because we had 5 or 6 hours shooting, which can be long for a kid. And he just needed to lie down in this fake hospital bed and feeling like a poor kid with cancer while I was trying to cheer him up with like cookies and things like that. So it was quite a nice experience, which made me like, oh, okay, there is an acting scene for foreigner in Taiwan. And so I keep applying for jobs. I didn't get every single one I wanted, of course. But yeah, I got more and more. And some years are better than others. But yeah, it's a nice thing to do. I wish I could do more. I wish agents were real agents and not just, agents in Taiwan for me is basically a person who have a notebooks and no producer and they will tell you something, but they are not really researching roles for you. It's always you as the actor who's making all the agent works and the agent then take 30% of your cut or something like that.
Yeah, I think it's, in general in Taiwan, there's a lot of agents out there, but there are people maybe that have done projects and then they decided, I'm going to be able to help other people find it and I'm going to take a cut of it. So they're not really I mean, of course, there are some agencies here, but most of them are quite small, individual type of things. So yeah, they're not going to go out of the way like if you have an agent or manager in the West or something and taking care of getting you projects and stuff. So same with me. I've had to look myself on Facebooks and stuff, and I've done some projects. I'm just hoping that there's going to be some international projects that are coming through that that will actually take more acting skills compared to a lot of the things in Taiwan.
Because a lot of commercials.
Yeah, they're just looking
Smile
at the
more.
face. Exactly.
Look more happy.
Exactly.
I'm so happy to be using this product. What is it again?
Well, one of the things I feel for me is challenging is that even though I feel like I kind of am a foreigner, but because I'm an Asian face, I don't obviously get projects that are for foreigners that can speak English or whatever like that, because I don't look like that. But that's why I was thinking, I hope that the international
me too.
projects come through. That gives us more opportunity, because for English projects, there's not that much.
Well, you know what thing was funny one time? So I had one of agents who was thinking, we needed somebody who can speak French. So I'm like, hey, my mother tongue is French. And you're Belgian. We don't need somebody who speaks Belgian. I'm like, Belgian is not a language. There is no Belgian. And she never believed me. So I don't even think she sent my information to the director, because she was like, I don't speak French. I'm like, French is my mother tongue. Like,
it's
I was like, what? Really?
Yeah, sometimes it's not too sophisticated here. I mean, I don't know. Was this person an agency, I mean, a legit agency, or just like one of these individual type of things?
Individual, but she's kind of a bigger name in the scene. I'm not going to reveal any names.
Right. Yeah.
So yeah, it was a little bit weird. I did sometimes get jobs which they first wanted a native English speaker. One time it was to make some shooting a video about teaching kids how to make chocolate pudding. So it was like for Bushiban or something like that, kind of school thingy. And for some reason, they could not find any Americans that could cook, while they knew I could cook. So like, okay, I got the job, and I had to speak and explain everything I was doing for 15 minutes. And my agent was quite happy that time, because they were running like crazy late. I was supposed to start shooting at 8 p.m. and we started at almost 11 p.m. And they were thinking my shooting would last for 5 hours. In 1 hour and a half, it was wrapped, because I just didn't need more. They did 2 takes just to make sure, but that was about it. Because it was like, you know, those YouTube videos, no cuts or anything, no so many angles. So if I start saying whatever and be wrong in front of camera, we just need to reshoot the whole stuff.
Yeah.
So they were happy.
Yeah. So if you were to advise anybody, say, that wants to come to live in Taiwan, what would you tell them?
Well, it will depend a little bit what's their goal. If it's like really living as a forever, like I'm doing, they should try to learn Chinese. It's a very hard journey to learn Chinese. Even on my level, I studied for over 4 years in university. So I had 4 hours a week every day for the whole time I was studying at the same time my environmental engineering degrees, bachelor and master. There were only 4 years of Chinese in my university. So actually I did the 3rd year twice and the 4th year twice, because I knew if I stopped anytime doing it, I would just forget anything. So purposefully, I did the same years again, so that I just keep listening and having the Chinese in the mind. And then I did 1.5 years in Taiwan. So basically, I keep having some type of Chinese class at some kind of level for 7 years, about something like that. And I have an intermediate level who give me around for daily life, but I could not be able to work in Chinese. Yeah. While on the 4.5 years, I studied like more strongly English, because I study English in high school for 4 years, then only a half year in US, and it gave me to an advanced C1 level. Then nowadays, of course, since I use it every day, I'd give some lecture in English in university and things like that. It gives me to a very high level, much faster than Chinese could do. So it's quite a journey, but it's helped you to integrate and be with the locals. I mean, if any time I met my neighbors or any Taiwanese and I was totally unable to understand anything they were saying, it would be quite a harder life.
Yeah, I've been working abroad for a long time, and I know that some executives that have lived in certain countries for 20 years, 15, 20, 30 years, and they don't speak a word of that country's language. And to me, that's just unbelievable. You know, you really should.
It depends if you want to integrate or not at all, but or in this case, you only stay with the foreign community, which is in the country. But if you want to be a little bit part of the daily life and be with the locals too, the language is important. But Chinese is quite a hard language to learn.
You don't have to tell me because and the funny thing is I meet Chinese or Taiwanese people that always say, oh, English is so hard, and I'm saying, no, Chinese is worldwide. The Chinese is the hardest language. Written, plus there's simple characters, complicated characters.
That's one
oh
thing,
my gosh.
A big part of my learning for English is actually I read novels in English. Anytime I put a show, I will always watch it in VO, like English language, or whatever language it was made originally with English subtitle. So always having this English coming from a lot of research and a lot of reading helped me. In Chinese, if there's one character in a sentence I don't know, I have no idea what that sentence means. And sometimes I can read every single character and I have no idea what it means because actually I didn't know those two together mean what.
I know, this is so crazy.
It's so frustrating because that makes me cannot learn the language in the best way. For me, listening helps a bit, but reading is what helps me the most. And so it's so frustrating. I'm trying to start learning Popomorpho, so Juin. Since my son has a lot of small books now, and some there's probably easy vocabulary about animals or whatever, some small short sentence. But I'm like, if I can read the Juin, then maybe I would know, I know Tuzi is rabbit in Chinese, but I actually don't really know how to read it because I never really had to. But so if I see those words, maybe it would increase my vocabulary that way by trying to read baby's book. But
I know. Popomorpho is actually the learning style for people that don't know, and it's known in Taiwan because most people that learn
use pinyin.
Use pinyin for learning Chinese, and I've been told that it actually gives quite more accurate pronunciations and stuff for the words, but for me it's really hard because I've already learned pinyin and it's really complicated.
It's an extra effort to give, and I'm in between two chairs in this case because I'm like, I would like to learn it and I could learn it by myself so that I can start reading those books. And at the same time, I'm like, but if I learn it in the wrong way, then I would take bad habits on the pronunciation. And so at the same time, I'm like, maybe I should find a Taiwanese teacher to really teaching me Juin and maybe, hold my jaw and tell me when you say this one, you put your head like this and your tongue like this. So I really understand the whole mechanics behind the sound.
So that science mind coming in.
I know. But so I can really take the very good habit with starting Juin and maybe drop some of my mistakes, the way I pronounce Chinese right now with pinyin. Because sometimes when I want to type words in Chinese to send to people, I'm like, I don't find it. It's because it's written with a C and not a Z, for example.
I know, that drives me crazy
so it means, since it's different, but I don't really find the difference between Tsai and Tsai, for example, which I'm not even sure I pronounce correctly. But anyway, if by spelling it, the pinyin, I'm not 100% sure which one it is, it means I didn't integrate well the type of pronunciation. tiny difference in between.
Yeah.
And so I hope if I start learning drawing that maybe I will be able to finally know what's the difference there.
Yeah, but the thing is that if you're looking at it in the overall Chinese language speaking, the pronunciation is good.
well-
The words are always the same, but like the pinyin and the way they write it, it's even like your husband. When I never can remember his name that well, because the written of his pinyin of his word
or the
is
past part
different than the word and using it in pinyin. You know, so it's crazy. But
one thing was crazy, like Zhong, if you see the roadside, so it's middle, it might be spelled Z-H-O-N-G or
C-H-O-N-G.
Or G-U-N-G, like, or G-H-U-N-G. It's like,
do we say Chinese is hard? But anyway, for me, I kind of learn Mandarin by watching movies and watching shows, and sometimes I'll say a word or say a phrase, and when I'm talking to my family, and they're like, "Oh, you know that phrase?" I go, "Yeah, because I watched it from the movie, you know." But language is such a hard thing, and I agree. I think it helps if people plan on living in a place to kind of learn the language at least. I mean, if I moved to Belgium, I would brush up on my French just because it's a lot easier to be able to get around and communicate. So, all right. So, if anybody wanted to find you on social media, where would they look?
Well, I have a IG account, which is Marie.in Taiwan. So MARIE.in Taiwan.
Okay.
So that's one way to find me, and Marie Mestdagh on Facebook as well. I have a page there too.
Okay, so you have any projects or anything coming up?
Well, I actually have next week a commercial with my son, so it would be the very first time he's on the other side of the, he's always on the other side of my phone camera, but never actually being paid for working, so we had to do a whole working permit for 2.5 years old, so I find it funny.
For your son?
Yeah, for my son.
Oh,
so
wow.
he will be doing some toddler products.
Okay, you had a project yesterday. Did you end up doing something yesterday?
No,
or
finally
they
wanted a foreigner who can speak Chinese, and finally I guess they chose somebody else.
Okay.
But the producer was like until almost the very end thought the client would choose me. So
okay.
too bad. But yeah, I'm trying to do more projects when I actually need to speak Chinese, but it's quite hard to book. One time I had one which was actually a long one where I might need to speak a lot of Chinese, but I had to go back in Belgium for family emergency the day of that shooting. So I was like, oh, I'm really sorry, I cannot do it anymore, but yeah.
Yeah. So Maurice, thank you so much for coming to talk with us today.
Thank you, Sharon, for inviting me. That was really great.
We'll have to do it again. And thank you for listening to us here at Old Asian Lady. See you next time.
Bye.